Skype right now. Let's bring in Cliff Corcoran. He writes about baseball for Sports Illustrated. Wonderful writer. Read him all the time, and he's written quite a bit about the Rockies over the last week. Let's start, Cliff. First of all, welcome to the show. And,
Thanks for having me.
And let's start with the Tulo trade to Toronto. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you originally wrote that, to you at least, on the face of it, the trade didn't make a lot of sense for either team. A week later, do you still believe that?
Well, that's what another one of our writers at SI.com wrote when he wrote the initial reaction. I actually think it makes a lot of sense for both teams. For the Rockies, I think it was time to move on. It was time to get out from under this contract to this player who's now in his 30s, who's injury prone, who's, yes, he's great when he's healthy, but, he's not healthy that often, and they owed him a ton of money. It's time for them to stop going year to year saying, well, if Tulo and Cargo are going to be healthy this year, then something might happen. They need to move on from that because it's not happening. And they finally have, and I think that's great. So good for the Rockies from that end. They got 3 kind of lottery ticket arms, but they got a ton of savings. And like I said, kind of this privilege now to move forward. I think trading Carlos Gonzalez is going to be the next step in that, which is going to be as almost as painful for the fans, I'm sure. But it's a necessary step. And for the Blue Jays, we've seen already they're 6-1 with Tulo in the lineup. They're in the wild card position now. They added Price. They added it to the bullpen. They added Ben Revere for defense. They make the postseason for the first time since 1993, and it's worth taking the gamble on that big contract and that fragile player if you've had a 20-plus year playoff drought that you're likely to break. But the Rockies are not in that position, and so I think it worked for both teams.
You also wrote that you were surprised a little bit that they didn't move Cargo. You expected them to make a few more moves. Why do you think the Rockies didn't make any more moves at the deadline?
Well, I think the Tulowitzki thing, obviously, we've been hearing about the potential for a Tulowitzki trade for a long time. So certainly a lot of effort and time was probably put into making that work. Carlos Gonzalez, I think they're content to wait until the offseason, though he would be kind of a guy who could be moved in August because of the amount of money he's still owed. He probably would clear waivers. He had a slow start to the season. He's been raking recently, which makes him very attractive. I feel like maybe I would not be shocked to see him go in August, even though the Rockies may not want to do that. He's red hot. What team going down the stretch wouldn't want to add that bat? Now might be a great time rather than waiting until the end of the season when teams are going to look back and see that over the whole season he was kind of down from his usual level following a terrible injury year last year. His value may not be higher than it is right now. So I feel like they should try to get that done, that deal done still now in August, but it's more likely to happen in the offseason.
Cliff, I would disagree with just respectfully one point you made about they did a lot of salary dumping because they picked up the guy that's making more than Troy. And I wonder, after seeing Reyes here, whether anybody's going to want him next year. In order to get rid of him, they're going to have to absorb a lot of his salary, it would seem. Do you agree or disagree?
Well, he's making more than Tulowitzki this season, but there's only 2 months left in this season. They dumped, $52 million, I believe it was, in terms of future commitments. That's more than Reyes is owed for the remainder of his contract. I mean, they did dump a ton of salary. It's about being able to move forward. Yeah, they're paying a little bit more. It's something like $800,000 more for the remainder of this season. I really, that comes out in the wash. It's the $52 million that they're saving over the next 4 or 5 seasons that Tulowitzki was owed, and the ability to move on there. So they absolutely dumped a ton of salary in this move.
Yeah, and I think the other reason you said they were working so hard on the Tulowitzki trade, I really believe they didn't trade Cargo because Dick Monfort didn't want sticker shock again and have to cry one more time.
It was too painful for him to get rid of Tulo.
I love Cargo, and I don't think he wanted to get up. And I watched last night. You probably saw him. He was sitting alone behind the dugout, and I thought, he doesn't have any friends left after that.
The thing with Jose Reyes is, because people said, well, they traded Tulowitzki, but they didn't get that one big prospect. They didn't get like Daniel Norris or, Noah Syndergaard. They didn't get that one big prospect to hang and say, here, fans, look what we've done. Obviously, it was ultimately a salary dump trade. They did get the 3 lottery ticket arms, all live arms, 1 a reliever, 2 other guys potentially starters. But Jose Reyes, they at least brought back, I know Jose Reyes isn't what he used to be, but he's a big name. He's a former all-star shortstop. I mean, you'd much rather, if you're trading Tulowitzki, you'd much rather look the next day in the lineup and see what they have today with Reyes hitting second than you would Daniel Descalso in that spot. So on some level, Reyes helps kind of smooth things over a little bit there. But I don't see them moving him. He's another guy who could go on a waiver deal. But yeah, I don't really see another team picking him up. He's around for a couple more years, and they may be able to move him when there's less left on his contract. But again, it was about the salary dump, and you've got a former All-Star shortstop still.
Well, I'm living vicariously through the Blue Jays since we have no pennant race here in Colorado and haven't in some time. So let me get your analysis on that. Blue Jays right now moved into that second wild card spot. How legit a threat do you think they are, A, to make the playoffs, and if they get there, to do damage in the playoffs?
I think they're a big threat. I actually think they're gonna make the playoffs. Now, the American League has been all topsy-turvy this season. If they make the playoffs, they'll be like the one team I picked to make the playoffs make it. So I've been picking them since March, and I think now with Price, they have 13 games left against the Yankees, 4 of which Price is going to pitch starting this Saturday. They could make waves in the East in the division race, but I think they're absolutely the Twins I have doubted from the start, and they're on their way down. I'm not at all surprised that it only took them 2 games to build a lead in the wild card over the Twins. The Orioles are going to be hard to shake. There's still a scrum there, but if Tulowitzki stays healthy, which is always the thing, but he's been great for them to start with, and I could see living vicariously getting Tulo, for a Rockies fan buried at the bottom of the West, to look and say, well, maybe we can root for Tulo and for the Blue Jays to break this long playoff drought. I think they're absolutely going to break the drought, and with Price lined up for a wild card game, they could get into a division series, and then anything could happen. They have the best offense in baseball.
He's Cliff Corcoran of Sports Illustrated. All our live guests are brought to you by Papa John's. We'll tell you more about Papa John's in just a second. Cliff, I think a lot of people here, certainly, and all around the rest of baseball, are surprised the Dodgers didn't pick up one of the big arms, Cueto, Hamels, Price, etc. Do you think the Dodgers, this is hard to say, we're suffering from some sticker shock because the payroll is so high already? And do you think with what they have, they'll be able to stave off the Giants and win that division?
I think the Dodgers actually did great at the deadline, and that big 3-team deal that they made with the Braves and the Marlins, they took on a ton of salary. I've seen some conflicted reports about how much they took on in terms of Bronson Arroyo's contract, which seemed like it was kind of a salary dump to balance things out there. But they took on Matt Latos' salary. They took on, which is only just the remainder of this year, but they took on Michael Morse's salary, $8 million for next year, and then cut him right away. So they took on money. But what they did is they needed pitching. The thing they needed more than anything else was pitching. They added 4 arms to their major league staff, 2 of them in the starting rotation. Matt Latos, who since he got back from the knee injury, he pitched well for them in his first start for the Dodgers, but before that, in 7 starts, he had an ERA just under 3, with his velocity getting back up and his strikeout rate getting back up, so he had been pitching well. And Alex Wood is a guy they owned for 4 years after this one. Team-controlled left-hander, good peripherals. That's a talented young arm, and they really only need him to be a 4th or 5th starter right now. So they did it exactly what they need to do. They don't need front-end arms with Kershaw and Greinke. They needed guys to fill in the back of the rotation. They got 2 guys who were perfect for that, and they got Jim Johnson to help out at the end of games in terms of shutdown relief. Johnson's been as good this year for the Braves as he was back when he was saving 50 games a year for the Orioles. And they had, they subbed out a broken lefty, a guy in the DL, and Paco Rodriguez for a healthy lefty in Luis Avilan. So they had 4 arms to their major league staff. That's exactly what they need to do, and I think they will be able to hold off the Giants. Though the Giants just got a bunch of guys off the DL as well, which is why they're making such a hard charge.
Yeah, bless you were wrong. I totally agreed with Cliff, because not only does Cliff know all of this, but I want to move in with him. He's got the biggest research library behind him I've ever seen. A final point. What you said you don't believe in Minnesota. We've now seen what Toronto's doing. How soon do you think that one of these teams is going to hire Dombrowski? Do you think Florida's going to take him? I mean, I think he was one of the best general managers in baseball, and the Tigers just threw him out there.
Is Dave Dombrowski going to land somewhere soon?
Oh, he's absolutely going to land somewhere. The question is it going to be as a GM or as a team president? And my suspicion, I have no inside information on Dombrowski, but my suspicion is that he asked out of his deal, is that, he saw the end of this era with the Tigers coming. He was allowed to make these moves, which the Tigers absolutely needed to make. They did the right thing. Free agents, Price, Cespedes, and Soria. But then I think having done that, I think he asked out to find a better situation, because he absolutely is one of the best general managers in baseball. He's going to land somewhere, and he's going to help whatever team he lands. I don't think he's going to go back to Florida, I think he's smarter than that. But, you know, he's going to land somewhere, and it's going to make a difference.
Sure, and he's tired of eating that lousy pizza, and he now can eat Papa John's pizza.
Oh, ow. Cliff, you don't have to remark on that one. Cliff, we really appreciate your time. And Cliff, what's your Twitter handle?
It's just Cliff Corcoran, Corcoran, at Cliff Corcoran. Just that's it.
Oh,
good enough. Cliff,
that's easy to
really
remember.
appreciate it, and we'll read you in Sports Illustrated as well.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Great job.
Right, Cliff Corcoran. All Live Guests brought to you by Papa John's, the official sponsor of the Colorado
some
Rockies.
good pizza.
The day after every Rockies win, not today, you get 50% off your regular menu price online order at papajohns.com. Use the promo code ROXWIN.